today we are tier ranking 70 monthly setups that I've done in my bullet journal so far. This was quite a task, so strap in and let's have a look. To start off with though, we're just going to have a flip through of all of my previous monthly setups so we actually know what themes we're playing with. Starting at the start, a very good place to start, we have January 2017 with a kind of blue and copper theme. I will say the themes at the start of my bullet journal life were pretty short-lived. They usually didn't last more than a couple of pages. And when we got to the weeklies, I certainly started doing just kinda whatever I felt like. So yeah, you can see that's not really blue anymore. It's more of like a teal color and so on and so forth. For February, we were into a purple theme. You can see my washi tape here bled through, which is a bit unfortunate. And the cover page itself doesn't actually have any relation to the rest of the pages. So kind of like a pink-purple theme. In March, we were doing more of a green theme, so possibly green and silver, as you can see from this washi tape. But again, there wasn't really a lot of relation between the pages of the setup and the cover page itself. In April, we had a blue and silver theme, so making good use of that washi tape, and a bunch of other colours it seems, so things aren't really on theme. May was more of a black and gold theme, though I don't think we actually get to the gold until we get into the kind of weeklies. Eventually. Possibly? Here's the gold. I knew it was in here somewhere. In the next journal, June was effectively a peach and lilac theme. So lilac on some pages, peach as well as the lilac on others. Mainly it was the lilac more than the peach, but you do have some pages that made use of both. I think this is where I really started to get into trying to have all of the pages be part of the same theme. I don't think it was very well executed later in the journal, but that was the intention. In July we had a similar thing again, so going with a kind of blue and teal colour palette. But again, I don't think this one actually lasted too long in terms of actually having all of the pages be in that colour palette. Like, we've changed the blue here. That's kind of the same blue, not really. That is not blue or teal. You can see that my themes at the start were very much just colour palettes. So for August, we had a pink theme, and I was also doing a doodle challenge, which I did not get very far with, possibly because I was kind of trying to make my doodles a little too hardcore. But the pink did stick around for a while, even if we kind of changed up the shade of pink as we went through. Cute weekly though. Yep, and now it's blue. In September, the theme was effectively yellow, or possibly yellow and black. More yellow though. Yep, that's a bit of yellow. But then I just started putting other colours in as well, so kind of a theme. I think it counts. Kinda. In October, this is where we started to touch on themes that weren't just colour palettes. So this one was kind of stars, but I was going to call it Halloween, just based on the fact that I had a couple of other Halloween-y type doodles. Not necessarily on every page, but we've got a couple little cobwebs, did a little doodle challenge here with different Halloween-y doodles, made good use of my dot washi tape, which I quite like that dot washi tape. Some interesting looking brush lettering, and then on to November, which was more of a kind of peachy kind of colour theme, or effectively what I'm going to call Pink 2.0. So peachy pink with that style of lettering on each of the pages. Did some Zentangles for the doodles, did 2 lines a day, actually got it all filled in, which is kind of impressive. December was the first time I feel the theme actually lasted for the majority of the month, so you can see it is very Christmassy related. I'm going to call this one Christmas 1.0 because I've done a few Christmas themes, but you can see you made good use of the colour palette being red, yellow, green, in particular the red. The red was very prominent in this one. And so were all of these colours, it seems, and I have no idea what any of these colours mean now because I didn't put in a key. At least light blue is for sleep, I know that much. Come 2018, we have the return of the colour theme. So you can see January was very much an orange theme. So a lot of orange throughout pretty much all of the pages. I think this is where I really started to solidify that idea of all of the pages in the month have the same kind of design or colour palette at the very least. Not to say that the cover page has actually matched the themes at this stage, but for February we have a yellow theme, and you can see I got lazy on the lettering, didn't want to do anything too hardcore because it was the start of school, so just used some little sticker print off things from my label maker. In March, I was doing a kind of collaboration with another YouTuber, and we were doing our own take on the same theme. So my theme here is effectively New Zealand natives, but it was supposed to be March in my country. So we did a little like tuataras, which is very cute, and then we have little kiwis, which are very sweet. But this one effectively was a green theme as well, but we're gonna call it New Zealand natives. In April, the theme was crystals, and the colour palette was blue again, because I'm pretty sure we had blue for the last April one as well. This one's pretty, I like this one. But everything was in that blue, everything had that kind of like crystalline font at the start. Despite what the picture for May lead you to believe, the theme for May was actually minimalist, or kind of minimalism. So I was going for a very minimalistic kind of font. I wasn't going to do a lot of doodling, not put in a lot of like washi tape and stuff like that. Except for the side of the pages, which I did for the entire of this journal, you may have been able to tell. But the colour palette for this one was essentially purple. And then in June, the colour palette was pink, but this one was kind of like a clouds theme. So kind of dreamy clouds, little hanging motifs, which are pretty cute. And I think this is the first time I did a square tracker, which is kind of cool too. In July, we had a triangles theme, and this is where I started to explore more in terms of different colour palettes, or multi-toned colour palettes. So not just blue, orange, yellow, that kind of stuff, using multiple different hues in one palette. In August, I went with a winter theme. The nice part is that I've got these little swatches here, so it effectively tells me what theme I was planning. But we were thinking mainly kind of blues, some little kind of brown tones to go with the craft paper we included, nice little washi tape, some gradient lettering. The September theme I deemed to be called Rainbow-ish. I'm going to call it Rainbow 1.0, but we've got a little rainbow cover page. We did some rainbow kind of colouring on the calendar. We also used a digital font the whole way through, which is a little bit of fun. I like the bright colours. For October, we were doing a Halloween theme, or Halloween, duh. I'm going to call this one Halloween 2.0 because I kind of consider the last October to be a Halloween theme as well. But you can see we have little spidey webs, which are kind of seem to be like my favorite thing to draw. We use them a lot in here. Kind of spooky font. Did another interesting color palette with the purple, red, orange, and brown, and the gray. And at this stage, I was getting very good at making sure I was kind of sticking to a theme the whole way through a monthly setup. So not just the monthly pages, but also each of the weeklies as well. For November, I called the theme Succulents. We're just going to call it Succulents. But we have the cover page here. You can see we were going with that kind of blue, green, and purple color palette in two different kind of tones for each. So a darker and a lighter one. Little mood tracker here, which is pretty cute. I was pretty pleased with how that mood tracker turned out. For December, we have another Christmas theme, so Christmas 2.0, making, again, good use of the Christmas colours, the yellow, the green, the red, which I think just end up looking really good together. Quite striking. For January, I was going with kind of like a goal-setting theme, but I called it a stars theme because that's what the decoration mainly was, so you can see up here. But we made use of bubble lettering, the pink and the blue colour palette, which I quite like. And a little folded Dutch door here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there we go. Little folded Dutch door. For February, we had an oceans theme, making use of that kind of Aztec font that I like, and using a lot of my Distress Oxide inks to do my decoration, along with little ocean kind of doodles. Changing up where the headers were, so not just having them at the top, but also down the side on some pages. In March, we went with a magic theme, and I wasn't confident in doing this lettering myself, so I just printed it onto a brown paper bag and then ripped it out and stuck it into my journal, which, I mean, I'm fine with. I don't think it's cheating. I think that's just making use of your resources. I do love the gold paint though. Super shiny. In April, I wanted something a little more minimal, or something that didn't use quite as many pens, and went with a botanicals theme. So mainly in black and white, but also incorporating some green in there as well. So in particular on my trackers, and also a little bit in the weekly logs and stuff like that. In May, we had a Disney theme, so cracking out my printer again to do the headers because I didn't want to stuff up the Disney style lettering, and I didn't have much care to try and do it myself. A lot of little Disney doodles, and this mood tracker, which I quite like. For June, you can see that the theme name was That Washi Tape Rachel Got From Jason, so I'm just going to call it a washi-inspired theme. But you can see it was a whole bunch of these patterns that were kind of like Japanese in styling, I think you could say. Made more use of the Dutch doors and stuff like that. In July, we had a travel theme, so a lot of little passport kind of doodles, little planes, which was quite cute. We have a little globe, again making use of a more creative colour palette and using that for the entire of the monthly pages. But when it came to the weeklies, I started doing some kind of experimenting with different types of weeklies that I could do, or different kind of weekly challenges. So like a 1 pen weekly, or a washi only weekly. One that was with stickers that didn't work out, so another one with stickers. In August, we had a back to school theme, so little apple kind of doodles. We used this kind of like lettering practice or like handwriting practice style for each of the headers, little corkboard, pencils, that kind of stuff. September was a space theme, and this page in particular was like weirdly popular on Instagram, and it was like super simple, so I didn't really understand, but I'm glad people liked it. I'm not going to snub my nose at that. But space theme in terms of like little planets, little rockets, this mood tracker, which is like super typical now, you see it a lot. In October, we took a step away from a Halloween theme and went with breast cancer awareness. So you can see the breast cancer ribbon on the front here, and then the rest of it was done in pinks and kind of an orange tone as well, because I didn't want just a pink color palette. So you can see I again made use of my Distress Oxide inks to do each of those headers and the decorative panels here. This one is a Dutch door, so I didn't have to do the decorative panels over and over again, which was also kind of nice. In November, we had a butterflies theme, and I originally remember picking it because I was going to be busy and I didn't want to have to do a whole heap of decoration, but this lettering style took forever. Which is why it didn't make it out of the monthly pages. Only the monthly pages have that style of lettering, and drawing butterflies, certainly not a strong point of mine, but at least I learned that. For December, we also decided to take a step away from the typical and went with a cocktails theme. So bright colours, very kind of summery, because obviously in New Zealand, December is in summer, so that kind of made sense for me. Also in this month, I was doing a little kind of like drink or draw challenge. So the doodle challenge for the month was all alcohols related or cocktail related. You can see I didn't get around to trying all of them. I actually didn't get around to finishing off my list, but I'll go back to it one day. January's theme was supposed to be something completely different, but it ended up being a Zentangles or kind of patterns theme. So in black and white with different panels of different pattern types. See like a little basket weave, and this one, whatever it's called. So using a different pattern on each of the pages. In February, I went with an old school gaming theme. So mainly kind of like pixelated games. Things like Pac-Man, we had Space Invaders, Snake, of course the obligatory Tetris mood tracker. For March, the theme was Dream Catchers, so making good use of those kind of pastel pinks and purples and blues, a very pretty colour palette. For April, green was feeling left out, so we went with a bamboo theme, which was mainly green but also some yellow tones as well, to give us that kind of like gradient effect. In May, I know I was super excited to do an autumn theme, or like autumn leaves, fall leaves kind of theme, because I just love the colour palette, and we don't really get proper autumn trees, or like deciduous trees in New Zealand. Most of ours are evergreens, so we don't really get that really pretty, typical reds, yellows, oranges kind of colour palette for fall. A theme and setup that was very popular online, we have the June setup, which was kind of like a moons and mountains theme, or like kind of moons, mountains, and geometric shapes. I'm just gonna call it moons and mountains. This mood tracker though, I did enjoy doing this one, and I love the shininess. In my next journal, I was trying my hands at a Neapolitan notebook, so on the craft paper we have a science theme for July. So molecules, glassware, that kind of stuff. For August, we were on the blackout paper and we went with a Harry Potter theme. So little Hogwarts kind of doodle here, some little ripped paper borders, which I love. The mood tracker, which was made to resemble the house points trackers, and little habit trackers with little kind of letter designs. For September, we took a step away from black and I went with a kind of roses, botanical kind of theme with these little kind of circle motifs and a lot of brown pen rather than using black pen, which is typical for me. By October though, I was very much missing the black, so we went with... See, the theme here isn't really much of a theme, like you could possibly call it a polka dots theme, but mainly what I was looking at was doing interesting trackers, or different styles of trackers. In November, we were back on the blackout and we went with a neon theme, so making very good use of post-it notes to add in those neon elements. And in December, we were back on the craft paper and went with a more Christmassy theme. This one in particular was a Christmas lights theme. So you can see little Christmas lights through the headers here. We had a little Christmas lights kind of mood tracker, opting in again for the typical colour palette of red, yellow, and green. In January 2021 though, we have Rainbow 2.0, so this one I feel like was more of a real rainbow theme, because you've got the little clouds and the rainbows. Loving the bright pops of colour, we've got the black outlines on the borders. Oh, this one's so cute. In February, we went with a bees theme, so we've got the little hexagons in the corners, and a hexagonal habit tracker, little bees flying around for the steps trackers, whole heap of yellow, whole heap of black. I love the contrast on these. In March, we went with a nautical theme, so little ripped paper borders, kind of little nautical-esque motifs. Did a whole bunch of little doodles, which were really cute. The rope borders, time-consuming, but worth it. In my opinion, at least. For April, we decided to be super original and go with cherry blossoms. Admittedly, April isn't in spring for me, but it is for the majority of people who follow me, so it probably felt like it was a pretty typical theme choice. We have a bunch of different pinks and browns though, made good use of craft paper again, and also printed headers. For May, it was back to bright though, and we have Stars 2.0 as the theme, or the second Stars theme. Whole heap of bright colours though, printed headers, good contrast with the black and the colours and the white. And then in June, our theme was pride flags, so looking at a whole bunch of different pride flags throughout the setup. One of the things I will note that when I came to doing my weekly pages on this, I wrote July instead of June for every single one of them. In July, I was very much looking for a simpler colour palette, so I went with a books theme, making good use of blue, gold, red and green, and a little bit of purple. For August, we were back to bright though, so this one was an Olaf's summer holiday theme, mainly because for me it was winter, so, you know, snowmen, but for the majority of my followers it was summer, so summer holiday. September 2021 was a step outside of my comfort zone, so making a lot more use of washi tape in my layouts and also going with a more pastel kind of colour palette. So this theme I called Pastel Clouds, making a lot of use of cloud doodles and the pastel colours, that kind of stuff. For October, we went with a theme that I'd been meaning to do for a while, and that was a Mean Girls theme. So super bright pinks, good contrast with the black, a whole bunch of different lettering styles, Dutch doors, all the good things. For November, I also decided to tackle another theme that I'd been meaning to do for a while, and that one was koi fish. So, a whole bunch of koi fish doodles, obviously, making good use of the faux calligraphy style lettering, so I could do some koi fish kind of patterns in those letters. We've got the little kind of Asian-inspired borders or corners here. This one was a lot of fun. For December, we have another Christmas style theme, and this one in particular was gingerbread men. So you can see a whole bunch of gingerbread cookies on the front here, and also on the monthly log, like this little guy hiding in a box. But outside of that, it was mainly the craft paper and the kind of candy stripe borders. Moving into 2022, our January theme was supposed to be mountains, but kind of ended up being more like a buffalo plaid theme. Not mad about it though. Well, slightly mad about how long it took to do buffalo plaid by hand, but I learned my lesson. Gosh, it took a while. But it does look good. I do like the way it looks. For February, we had another time-consuming one, and this was a sunsets theme. So making a use of a bunch of different tombos to do the background gradient, and then using some tombos and some other black markers to do the kind of grass border at the bottom, that kind of silhouette style. In March, we stepped away from the super bright colours and went to a kind of more pastel toned colour palette. This one was a letters or mail theme, and we had little paper planes in this as well, which I thought were pretty cute. Quite a nice colour palette too. For April, I decided to go with another typical theme, and that was an April showers theme. So you can see the simple kind of clouds and the little raindrops that look like they're hanging off strings, which I thought was kind of a cute touch. Come May, and I started experimenting with different size notebooks, so we have a B5 panda theme. Little pandas on the front, some little panda doodles on other pages of the setup. In particular, one of my favorites is this guy. I think he's pretty cute. And again, I went with printed headers, so I didn't have to try and do that style of lettering myself. Just made it a little easier. In June, I decided that wasn't nearly enough doodles and I really needed to give my hand a hand cramp, so I went with a Love is Love Potions theme. This was also kind of to make up for the theme from the previous year, which I felt I hadn't executed very well. So for this one, I just focused on one of our pride flags, in particular the bisexual pride flag, and used the colours from that one to do this setup, which I know how long this took me and how much my hand hurt, but I do super love it. Looking for something a little bit simpler in July, and I'm not too sure why, but I was just really craving doing this theme, especially considering July is winter for me, not summer. But we have a watermelon theme, and in this one we have the little letter tabs, so each of the pages has a different letter on it, which spells out July going down the side of the page. Super cute. I of course also needed to draw out 70 watermelon pieces for our book club tracker that month. Not that I actually went and filled in all the seeds, because I did actually read the whole thing. Trying something even simpler in August though, for this month I went back to the original bullet journal method. So effectively just setting up the pages that were outlined in the book by Ryder Carroll. So very simple, didn't even make use of my actions list, but we can ignore that. And effectively mainly just doing dailies for the whole month, which, I mean, I got a lot done. And I don't dislike how it looks either. Bringing you in a little bit closer, because our next journal was a B6 size, so a lot smaller than the B5, like literally half the size. But the theme for September was fireflies, and you can see I made good use of the blue and the yellow, and had a whole bunch of decoration on all the pages, which is kind of interesting, considering there's less space in a B6, but I felt more inclined to do more doodling. For October 2022 though, we have what was intended to be a witch theme and kind of ended up being more celestial, so I'm going with a lunar witch theme. So moon decorations, making good use of the gold paint again, using washi from the washi tape shop, that kind of stuff. Now as we've looked at all of the monthly setups though, it's time to think about how are we actually going to rank them. So for this I'm using a 6-point scale, I guess you could say, or effectively A through to F. But thinking about each of those individually, A is effectively for my favorite themes. So the ones that I absolutely loved, that I either have or would do again in essentially the same way that I already did them. For B, these ones are the themes that I also love. They're not quite the favorites, and I probably would do those ones again just with some minor tweaks. So maybe changing the styling of the doodles ever so slightly, adjusting the color palette, that kind of stuff. For C, these are the ones that I really like the theme of and I'd probably do them again, but with some differences that are less small. So rather than just tweaking the doodles or tweaking the color palette, I might use a different one. For For D, these are themes that I like, but I don't like the way that I executed them. I'd probably do it quite differently if I was trying to attempt this theme again. For E, these are the ones that have elements of promise. There are small parts of the setup that I quite like, but overall I kind of missed the mark. It's a no from me. But it's not quite hot trash. Which of course brings us to F, which is hot trash. What the heck even is this? Blech, no thank you. These are the ones that I would rather not focus on. One of the things that I found from years of marking student work is that I either start off really harsh and get nicer as I go on, or I'll start off nicer and get super harsh towards the end. So to avoid that making much of a difference in terms of my rankings, I decided to randomize the order of the themes that I was ranking. So rather than ranking through in chronological order, I used a random number generator to randomize the order of the themes that I should look at. After going through each of the themes individually and giving them their ranking, this was the distribution of the rankings that we ended up with. So you can see we have 6 themes that I rated an F, 10 in E, 12 for D, 17 for C, 14 for B, and 11 for an A ranking. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. The first F theme we have is from February 2017, the pink and purple theme. Honestly, a lot of the ones in F come from my earliest bullet journals. But the thing with this theme is that the elements just don't match, which is something that I really enjoy having in my setups. Plus the washi tape bleeding through the page, which is just weird in general, didn't really help. It is certainly not a layout that I like to spend a lot of time thinking about. Even though the cover design was cool, like I said, has nothing to do with the rest of the theme, so... Our second F theme was the next month, and this was March 2017. Again, just nothing really matching, no cohesiveness between each of the pages of the setup. The cover design on this one was also a little less exciting than the one we had in February, but overall I feel like the setup was just kind of messy. The next setup in our F tier was also the subsequent month, and this was April 2017. While I do love the combination of blue and silver, this theme again was not consistently used throughout the pages of the setup. Plus I also just ended up using some of the pages for lettering practice, which I feel would have been better suited to scrap paper. I believe it was also around this time that I started to kind of get a little over my bullet journal. I was kind of ready to move on to something new, but I still had a lot of the journal left. May 2017 was also one that I considered to kind of be hot trash. While I say this was a black and gold theme, as we saw before, the gold really didn't get introduced until the first weekly for the month. And again, there wasn't a lot of consistency throughout the pages. You can see that consistency or cohesiveness in my setups is something that I value a lot. So if a setup doesn't have that, it's not usually a setup I like very much. Skipping a month and going into July 2017, this was also a setup that I feel fell short. I think the color combination of blue and teal is an interesting choice, and the fact that I didn't keep the blue consistent throughout the setup also just really irks me. Like, we have completely different shades and tones and slight hues of blue. If I had have just picked one type of blue and used that consistently, I probably would have liked it more, but that's not what I did. Jumping quite a bit ahead to June 2021 though, this theme had so much potential, which is why it's kind of sad that it's sitting here in the F tier. Don't get me wrong, the idea of a Pride Flags theme is something that I really like, but my execution of this I feel just did not do the theme idea justice at all. Again, we don't have a lot of cohesiveness between the different pages. Also, the fact that we're doing so many different Pride Flags means that we have a big variety in the color palette, which means getting those pages to actually look like they belong together doesn't really work. Also, the fact that I wrote July on all of the weekly pages kind of made this one a bit of a letdown. So there we have our 6 in the F tier. So February, March, April, May, and July from 2017, and June of 2021. Moving into E though, we have 10 themes in this category. The first of which is January 2017. So remember, the E category isn't quite hot trash. There's some redeemable thing from this setup. One would be the combination of the blue and the copper. I think that's a really nice color palette. But the main one was the January cover page. It took freaking forever, but I think it looks so damn good. I absolutely love that pattern, and I would totally do that part of it again, even if again, we don't have the cohesiveness in the rest of the pages. The next theme in the E tier is June 2017. And you'll see it does look kind of similar to July 2017, at least in terms of the cover page, but I think that the lilac and peach color combo worked a lot better, and I did like how I utilized that color combination in at least some of the weekly setups, though I really do wish I had have kept the color palette throughout the rest of the pages. Next up we have August 2017, or Pink 1.0 in terms of the theme. This is where I started to get a little bit more consistent in terms of my heading styles, which was something that I liked from this one. And I also liked how I used small amounts of washi tape decoratively, and at least made some of the pages of the setup look like they tied together. But not the weeklies. At this stage in my planning journey, I was very much finding it difficult to keep a consistent color palette or style when it came to doing my weeklies and my monthly setup. September 2017 was also another E theme, this one being yellow, and again you can see I'm bringing in more of those elements of consistency, so similar lettering styles, a more consistent color palette, that kind of stuff. That is, until we get to the weeklies. Though the orange weekly that I used in particular in September was one of my favorites for quite a while. I think that one ended up looking really good. October 2017 was the first month that we had a theme that was like more of a theme than just a color palette, even if only slightly. I really like the little spider webs, I think that they're very cute, and I think that the doodle challenge in particular on this one turned out pretty well too. I also like the combination of the green washi tape with the gold dots. That was a nice combo too. But it doesn't get a higher score because again, the weekly pages don't really tie in nicely together. November 2017 was our Pink 2.0 theme, so more of like a peachy pink, but I quite like the lettering style that I used for the headers, so that's really the redeemable characteristic we have for this setup. I also liked the combination of the peach tone with the black. Contrast is one of my favorite things, and it was also nice to see that I actually used the pages of my setup. That always makes me feel good. We also have some weekly styles that I thought were kind of creative and fun to look at. Although March 2018 was certainly a more cohesive theme with a consistent colour palette the whole way through, I didn't super love this one. I thought that my little kiwi doodles, like the kiwis and the tuataras and the little cheeky Kia, they were all very cute, but overall this one just wasn't really one of my favourites. The more cohesive decoration style in the monthly setup, and the consistency in the colour palette though, saved this one from being an F. A setup that had the potential to be one that I really liked, but kind of missed the mark, was the Butterflies theme for November 2019. While I really liked the lettering that I did in the monthly setup in particular, and I do quite like the colour palette, drawing butterflies is just super challenging, so outside of the butterfly stickers, I didn't really like the majority of the butterflies that I drew. October 2020 was another one that made the E list, which was kind of sad because October's my birth month and I actually really like polka dots. I just know that at this point in time I was feeling very demotivated to use my bullet journal, and I think that my monthly setup suffered because of that. I think that craft paper themes can be really pretty, and I'm kind of bummed that this one didn't turn out better. The subsequent month, November 2020, was also one that had the potential to be awesome, but didn't turn out as great as it could have been. The idea of a neon theme is really cool, but again, I wasn't really using my journal at this point, and blackout paper is like my arch nemesis, so I didn't set up many spreads. So those are our 10 themes for E. We had January, June, August, September, October, and November in 2017, March in 2018, November 2019, and then October and November from 2020. When it comes to our D tier, we have 12 themes for this one, the first of which is December 2017. This was my Christmas 1.0 theme, or our first of the Christmas themes. Remembering that D means that I quite like the theme, but not necessarily the execution of it, and I'd do it quite differently if I did it again. That sentiment certainly shows, given the fact that I have done multiple Christmas themes since this one. But I love Christmas themes. I really love the colour palette that I've used for pretty much all of them, being the green, the yellow, and the red. And altogether I think that this setup in particular turned out better than the ones prior to it. January 2018 was my orange theme, and this was really where I was starting to get very much into the idea of all of the pages of a setup being cohesive. So not just the monthly pages matching, but the monthlies and the weeklies matching each other. While orange isn't really one of my favorite colors, I do really love how bright and fun this turned out. But if I were to do this one over again, I probably wouldn't have the theme just be orange as the color. I'd probably make it like orange fruits or something like that. February 2018 was another D theme, this one being yellow. So again, I love the cohesiveness, but if I was going to do a strictly yellow theme again, it would probably be a lemons theme or something like that. Something that allows me to use a yellow color palette, or a primarily yellow color palette, but isn't a journal theme strictly based around a color, if that makes sense. I also feel that this one could have been better by making the lettering style the same on each of the pages. That would have helped it tie together better. And also being a little bit more consistent in the type of yellow that I was using on each of the pages. So sticking with either the really bright one, or the more pastel one, or something like that. May 2018 was our Minimalist 1.0 theme. And while I do very much like minimalist themes, I think I could have done this one better. So in the second edition of my minimalist theme, I did do it differently. I did enjoy trying out using a colored pen to do my writing though. So writing with the purple rather than just writing with black. One of the things that puts this setup in the D tier though is that while the theme was minimalist, when it got to the weeklies, I didn't really stick with that. At least it was still in the same color palette, but it would have been nice to see some more minimal weeklies for this month. The next one we have is September 2018, or the Rainbow 1.0 theme, the first edition of the Rainbow, and considering I did another one which was quite different, you can kind of see why this ended up in D. I love rainbow themes, I love rainbow color palettes, though I thought it was an interesting choice to pair the digital font with the rainbow theme, because they don't necessarily relate to each other very well. I also thought I could have used my rainbow color palette better on some of the pages. I did really like the weekly style that I used in this setup though. That one was particularly helpful while I was still at school because I could quite easily break things down into the different periods and have a task list for each day. And I also enjoyed doing my monthly reflection, and though I've changed the style of this now, it was kind of around this time period that I really got into using it. January 2019 is our next month in this tier, that one with the Stars theme, or Stars 1.0. And this is another theme that I have done again and done it quite a bit differently. I feel like the blues and pinks in here look a little bit more washed out than they actually are in person, but I do wish I had have used maybe some brighter colours on the headers, and also incorporated more of the star motifs in the weekly spreads. That would have been nice too. Up next we have our travel theme from July 2019, and I would like to do a travel theme again, but if I were to do it again, things I would change would be, again, the kind of decorations. I do like the little airplanes, I'd probably make more use of those, and I'd also change up the color palette because these kind of like half bright, half muted, it's not really my favorite. I do appreciate the creativity of the color palette, but it's not one that really speaks to me. Also, this is when I was trialing a bunch of different types of weeklies, or those different weekly challenges that I mentioned before, which meant none of the weeklies actually matched the setup, and as we've talked about, I like cohesiveness, and these weeklies are not cohesive with the monthly setup. The next one we have is December 2019 with our cocktails theme. And I would probably do a cocktails theme again, but if I were going to, I would probably change the color palette, and I probably wouldn't use stickers, or if I did use stickers, I'd base my color palette around those stickers, because they don't really seem to fit with the rest of the elements that I picked. I'd also probably pick something a little more fun for the headers for the monthly setup, and then carry that font through into the weeklies so everything ties together nicely. The hard part about January 2020 is that the theme was supposed to be something else. I was going to go for a pastel clouds theme, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it to work. This was my first time using an Archer and Olive, and I think that my expectations of the journal maybe weren't quite aligned with my artistic abilities. I don't know. While I do very much like Zentangles, this is another one that I really wish I had have brought those elements into the weekly setups more. So just adding a couple of patterns, I mean I did use some zigzag washi tape here and there, but it would have been nice to draw some things out. February 2020 was another one that had really good potential, but I think the execution of it wasn't quite right. I think if I were to do this one again, I'd probably just stick with one type of game rather than do a multitude of games. I really love the black on this though, the contrast is excellent. But again, I didn't follow this through into the weekly spreads. It was also around this time that I was trying my hand at having a teacher planner as well, which meant that the only things left in my journal were pretty much chores, which isn't really super inspiring, so I was finding using my journal difficult. So yeah, it would have been nice if it was a bit more cohesive throughout the month. Up next we have August 2021, and this is one that very much fits the whole I like this theme but I'm not going to do it again kind of thing. The colour palette is essentially very similar to the cocktails theme we had from December of 2019, and I just don't think that's my favourite colour palette. I think if I was going to do an Olaf theme again, I probably wouldn't try and make it summery, I'd probably just keep it more to a wintry theme, but the Snowgies are very cute. Next we have my lowest rated theme from this year, and that is the Sunsets theme from February. While I really like the idea of full pages of colour, I think doing full pages of colour and the gradient was just a bit too much. It also meant that when it came to the headings, I got kind of lazy and I just did blackout paper with regular white all caps text, which I then didn't really continue into the weekly pages. I felt that the weekly pages of the setup didn't really tie in super nicely, because a lot of the time I couldn't really be bothered doing the full gradient. If I did this one again, I would probably approach the gradient a little bit differently, try and find some better transition colours, maybe not use things that were quite so bright, I don't even know. But something I do know is that whatever lettering style I used in the monthly pages, I would continue into the weekly pages, just so everything ties together nicer. So there we have our 12 themes in the D tier. Our highest rated theme from 2017 being December or Christmas. We have 4 from 2018 being January, February, May and September. 2 from 2019 being the travel theme and the cocktails theme. 2 from 2020 being January and February. Olaf's summer holiday from 2021 and sunsets from 2022. C is our biggest tier though, with 17 themes. These are the themes that I really like, and I would do them again with some less small differences. So not just changing a colour palette, but maybe changing multiple elements. I feel the main difference between the C tier and the D tier is just how much I like the theme, and April 2018 was one that I very much did like. Though the things that I would change about this would be how I filled in some of the trackers to kind of make it seem a little more in line with the theme, or at least in line with the colour palette that I have in the headers, and then I'd carry that lettering through into the weeklies. I was still very much experimenting with different styles of weeklies, which I could still have done, but incorporated more of the design elements, in particular those crystalline type headings. Another theme that I really liked, which you can probably expect given that it's in this tier, was the Pink Clouds theme from June 2018. I really loved the pink colour palette and I loved the little cloud headers. In terms of changes though, you can probably predict what's coming. I really wish I had have carried this through into the weeklies. It took me a long while to recognize that one of the ways you make a setup look cohesive is using those repeating elements. It's not really just enough to have the same colour palette. Like, the colour palette does make it look like it ties together, but there's more to the design than just the colours. July 2018 is another one that I really liked. I loved the colour palette on this one. I think I already mentioned that before. This was my first time using a Scribbles That Matter journal too, so I was really enjoying also not having as much ghosting, which was really nice. Triangles as a theme is just kind of interesting to me because it's not necessarily something I do anymore, and while I didn't necessarily continue those triangles through to all of the pages in the setup, the weeklies in particular, that would probably be something I'd change. So again, those changes just really being to try and make things more cohesive. Our winter theme from August 2018 is another one that I really like, and in particular, I love the colour palette. I really like colour palettes that have a contrast of colours. So in this one, it was that kind of like brownish gold colour with the blue gradient. Things I would change about this one though would be the way that I approached the gradient lettering for the headers of the monthly setup. I also probably wouldn't have included the cloud elements on the weekly spreads unless I had included them in the monthly setup, because they don't really match with the theme overall. So really just trying to build some consistency into the decoration style. The Halloween theme that we had for 2018 is another one that I really liked, but the change that I'd probably make to this would be the colour palette. I used a lot of that dark grey, which looking back isn't really my favourite. I also feel that I probably could have done better with the header lettering, though this is partly from the fact that I've now had more practice doing different lettering styles. And I'd probably change the style of the habit tracker in particular, because that style didn't really work for me. For the succulents theme of November 2018, the main change that I'd probably make to this one would be the color palette, or at least the washi tape that I used on a lot of the pages, because that green looks really washed out and I'm just not really a fan of washed out colors. I prefer things that are a bit more vibrant. I did really love the weeklies that I did in this setup though, and it was nice having the little reflection at the end of each week, and also the reflection at the end of the month. One of the things that I didn't super like is that one of those brown paper bag headers on the weeklies looks so skew whiff. That one's for week 46 in particular. It's just on this weird angle and I don't like that. Jumping ahead a bit to April of 2019 with the botanicals theme, I quite like this style of doodling and it's one that I have used since doing this theme. I do wish though I had have kept the green to be more minimal. I feel like colouring in with the green on the steps and habit tracker in particular was a little bit much. I probably could have found a different way to fill in that tracker. And while the dailies started off really well, like I liked the style of them, I thought that it was a good structure, by the end of the month I was super bored with them, so it would have been nice to change them up a little. The washi inspired theme from June 2019, I did quite like. I like that the washi itself offered an easy colour palette. I will also say though, at this point in time, I was just going through some general struggles in life, so using my journal was not so much of a priority, and I possibly have some kind of negative memories attached to this setup. And if I were to do this one again, I probably would have gone and added a bit more decoration onto the dailies ahead of time. I would have done more doodling rather than stickering. I was trying my hand at doing some journaling at this point, which I did also quite like, but it would have been nice to somehow figure out how to write the prompts in ahead of time. I wasn't doing that because I wanted as much space as I needed for each of my daily lists, but something that probably could have had some more thought. The breast cancer awareness theme that I had for 2019 was another one that I really liked. Probably if I was going to do a similar theme again, I would stick with just pinks for the colour palette, though I don't dislike the combination of the pink and the orange. I enjoyed using my Distress Oxide inks as well, they made for easy decoration, and it would have been nice to use more of those on the weekly spreads. The bamboo theme of April 2020 is one that holds a very special place in my heart. You guys probably know what was happening in April 2020, but it was really this month and the month of planning with me series that I did during the month that very much got me back into actually using my bullet journal. Prior to this, I was in a huge slump because of the aforementioned teacher planner that was effectively just making it so there was only chores left in this journal. But because I was doing the month of planning series, it really helped me recommit to using my bullet journal. If I were to do it again, I would probably change the way I did the bamboo decoration. It kinda ended up looking a little bit like corn, I will admit. But I do think this one was a lot of fun. In August 2020, I had the Harry Potter theme on the blackout paper, which very much cemented the idea that blackout paper is my arch nemesis. You can see that a lot of these pages just did not get filled in because I can't be bothered waiting for a gel pen to dry. I'm just not about it. Because I don't like the blackout paper, I also found it very difficult to use my journal in this month. So if I were to do a Harry Potter theme again, I would not do it on blackout paper, even if it looks pretty cool. The roses theme that we have for September 2020 was one that was very much outside of my comfort zone because I tend towards using black and high contrast, and this one didn't really have that. And while I enjoyed the challenge, if I were to do a theme like this again, I would probably tend towards using stickers or something like that. Actually having to draw out all of the roses was super time consuming, and although I like the way it looks, I don't think I like the way it looks enough to warrant spending the time doing it again, if that makes sense. The Christmas lights theme that we had in December 2020 was also a lot of fun. I liked getting to use the glitter washi tapes and that combination of the red, the yellow, and the green. But if I were to do this one again, I'd probably actually like to do some weekly planning in my bullet journal. Again, I wasn't really using my bullet journal at this point in time. In April 2021 though, we had a cherry blossoms theme. This is another theme that I really like, though if I were to do it again, I would change the headers in particular. The ones on the white paper just kind of look a little eh. I would have liked to have done them a little differently. I probably also wouldn't have picked the same font again. Like, I like the typewriter style, it's one of my preferred ones, I go to it regularly, but I don't think it necessarily matches the cherry blossom theme specifically. September 2021 was another theme that was a bit outside of my comfort zone, so using more washi tape in my journal, but not in the way that I usually do for my ideas videos,
but more doing like washi layering and stuff like that. It's not something that I tend towards. One of the things in particular that I would have changed about this theme, and I actually kind of ended up doing, was that I initially set up all of my weeklies on Dutch doors that had these kind of interesting cutouts, and while I don't dislike that specifically, it wasn't what I needed at that point in my journal. I wanted something super simple, and that was a little bit more complex. So I actually ended up just going and making more weeklies, which were just that Alistair style of kind of running weekly task list. Coming in with another Christmas theme in our C tier, we have the Gingerbread Men theme. This one had a lot of potential, and while I do like the gingerbread men, I think they're cute, I think I would have liked to have coloured them in with something other than the Tombos, because the streaky kind of consistency from colouring in sections that are that large isn't really something that I love. And I was also just like super busy this month, so I barely touched my journal. I needed to make it easier for myself to actually use, and I didn't really do that. For May 2022 though, we had a pandas theme, and this is one that, again, I really liked this theme, but if I were to do it again, I would make some less small differences. In particular with regards to the weekly setups. This was my first month in a B5 size, so I understand why I found it, tricky to kind of get into my groove with the different weekly spreads. But looking back at them, they all look super similar and kind of boring. So I would have liked to explore more how you can use a B5 to include more elements onto the weekly spreads, or more decoration, or something like that. So there we have our 17 themes in the C tier. 6 from 2018, being crystals, pink clouds, triangles, winter, Halloween 2.0 and succulents. We had 3 from 2019, being botanicals, the washi inspired theme, and the breast cancer awareness theme. We had 4 from 2020, being bamboo, Harry Potter, roses and Christmas lights. 3 from 2021, being cherry blossoms, pastel clouds and gingerbread men. And 1 from 2022, being the pandas theme. Moving into our B tier, these are the themes that I loved, and I would do them again with minor tweaks. They're not necessarily my favourite themes, but I do really love these ones. The first of which is our highest rated theme from 2018, and that is Christmas 2.0, which of course was in December. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I love the Christmas colour palette of the red, the yellow and the green, and I think that this year in particular I used it really well. I loved the kiwi wreath, I loved the gradient lettering in the headers, I super loved the monthly layout. I think the part that really sold this for me is that when I was using the Christmas colour palette, I made it two-tone for each of the colours, so a darker and a lighter shade. While the weekly spreads of this one don't actually match the rest of the setup, because I just love the monthly setup that much, I'm gonna let it slide. My oceans theme from February 2019 was another one that I really loved. Using the Distress Oxide inks to make that kind of like splotchy green and blue panels was just like super pretty, and I really loved using that Aztec font for all of my headers. Also, using the Distress Oxide inks, it meant that I could spray water over those panels and get that kind of underwater-esque vibe. I just think it was really pretty. I really love this one. I would totally do this theme again. The tweak that I'd probably make would be incorporating more of those Distress Oxide elements into the weekly setups. March 2019 was another one that I super loved. This one was a magic theme. I really love the printed paper bag headers, and this was the first month that I did those. I think they turned out really good. I love the purple, the gold, and the black colour palette. The funny thing is that this month has one of my least liked pages in it as well, which is that one that said this month with the stickers. It just completely didn't match the rest of the setup. And I would stick those pages together, but I like to use it as an example of a page that I don't like, and thus didn't use. But I would totally do that theme again. The next very loved theme would be May 2019's Disney theme. It was nice doing a kind of stylized version of the Disney characters with the little watercolor elements. We had more of those paper bag headers with the printed lettering that I didn't have to do because it was printed. So nice. I really loved the contrast of this one too. If I were to do it over again, I probably would have changed up the style of the weeklies, just bringing more of that kind of watercolor aesthetic to it rather than the solid blocks of color, though I do think my Disney doodles turned out pretty well. August 2019 with our back to school theme, and although this one has some sad memories because I know I was kind of thinking about quitting teaching at this point, I think the monthly setup turned out really super well. Although the weekly setups just straight up do not match the monthly setup, which is probably the thing I'd change, the monthly setup itself makes up for this, making it one of my very much loved themes. In March 2020, we had the Dreamcatchers theme, and the thing I'd probably change about this would be the color palette, because pastel isn't really for me. I did very much love this theme. This is where I started to get into doing those almost rope borders, and while I didn't do a great job of it on the cover page or on the habit tracker, when it came to the mood tracker, I kind of figured out how to do it in a way that looked better. Although I said I'd change the color palette, maybe I wouldn't. I do kind of like the little gradient of colors we have. It would have been nice to incorporate more of the Dreamcatchers into the weekly setups, but I also know that I was going through a slump in my journal at this point, so I'll let it slide. The autumn theme that we had for May 2020 was awesome. I love this color palette, I love the gradient, I love the printed headers with the contrast. If I were to do it again though, the minor tweak that I'd probably make with this one is that some of the printed headers I printed later than other ones, which meant that I didn't remember what size of font I'd used, so they don't actually match. So the headers for the Coke Zero tracker and the A Month of Planning and the Shit to Get Did and Someday Maybe lists, those ones are all smaller than the rest of the monthly setup. It would have also been nice to have used more of those printed headers on the weeklies so that they matched better too. But overall, certainly one that I like a lot. As I mentioned before, the Moons and Mountains theme from June 2020 was a favourite on social media, and I love the combination of the dark blue and the metallic paints. I also really like the geometric parts of the doodles, those were really cool, and the kind of clean aesthetic, I guess you could say, very straight edges in terms of our colour boxes and things like that. If I were to do this one again, I would probably try and make it look a little more cohesive. I feel like there were a lot of different design elements that weren't necessarily used on all of the pages, but it is certainly one that I really love. The science theme that we had in my Neapolitan journal for July 2020 is another theme that I would for sure do again. The tweak that I'd probably make with this one is that if I were to do a science theme over, I would probably focus more on the doodling part, or the kind of illustrations that look more like they came out of an old school science textbook. I think that would be a lot of fun. The bees theme in February 2021 is another one that I super love the contrast of, although yellow itself isn't a colour that I personally like all that much. I think the combination of black and yellow looks really good. Also, doing Dutch doors for each of the weeklies and having each of those Dutch doors be different was a lot of fun. And incorporating the hexagons into the design too was something that I appreciated. Prior to this, I hadn't included a lot of decoration on my weekly spreads, and I think that's something I'd kind of like to bring more of into my planner. The second edition of the Stars theme is one that I really loved. The colour palette was fun, the contrast is fun, I like our printed headers, all of those little elements that just make a theme better for me. I think it just seems to be a thing that I have for May themes, in that the May themes have printed headers. That's just something that happens every year. It would have been nice to include these printed headers on the weeklies again, but I do very much love this setup. July 2021 with the books theme was another one that I got to use my gold paint on, which is so shiny and I love it. And also using that with the combination of the blue notepad paper was really pretty. The small tweak that I probably would have made to this one is that I used the gold paint for the main headers, but then for the smaller headers I used an acrylograph, which doesn't have the same level of shininess. So if I had a little bit of extra time, I probably would have used the gold paint to do those headers as well, just so that everything was super shiny. Jumping a full year ahead, we're into 2022 and looking at the watermelon theme. I really loved doing the letter cutout tabs, that was a lot of fun, and I think they were just a really cute decorative element to add to the setup. The colour palette was also a lot of fun, and in terms of the small tweak that I'd do if I were to make this again, it would just be to pay a little bit more attention to some of my lettering. For those chunky watermelon letters that I used on the monthly setup in particular, some of the letter forms ended up looking a little skew-with, a little cattywampus, so it would have been nice to put a little bit more time into those to get them looking as nice as they could have. It also would have been cool to incorporate more of those coloured block sections using my dock grid paper, because I have ones that would match this theme super well. The next B tier theme that we have is that of Minimalist 2.0, which I did in August of 2022. It was actually just nice to get back to something super simple, and also it meant that I got a lot done. Because I didn't set up weekly spreads for this one, I effectively gave myself unlimited space to write as many tasks down as I needed to. This meant that, sure, my task lists were super long, but I got lots done. So those are the 14 themes that we have in the B tier, being our highest rated theme from 2018, being Christmas 2.0. We had 4 themes from 2019, being Oceans, Magic, Disney, and Back to School. Another 4 themes for 2020, being Dreamcatchers, Autumn, Moons and Mountains, and Science. 3 themes from 2021, being Bees, Stars 2.0, and Books. And then 2 themes from 2022, being Watermelons and Minimalist 2.0. Heading into the A tier, which of course is just everything that's left over, but remember, these are my favorite themes. These are the ones that I have or would do again in essentially the same way. I might make the tiniest of tweaks, but I think that these themes turned out absolutely excellent. The first one of these is our highest rated theme from 2019, and that is my space theme from September. I loved this one. I loved the color palette, I loved the doodles, the little spaceships, and the rocket ships, and the stars. I think space themes in general are just super cool. Like, I would totally do an entire year of space themes. I'm not going to, but I would. This one just turned out great. I love the mood tracker, I love the bucket list, I love all of the different weeklies with the blue and the yellow. This was also a month that Vogel set up one of my weeklies, so that's got a happy memory attached to it. It was just a good time. The next most loved theme is Rainbows 2.0, so the second edition of the Rainbows theme, which happened in January 2021. There's a lot to be said about starting a new journal, and starting a new journal with a rainbow theme is just double plus good. I love rainbow themes. I love the rainbow color palette. I super loved this one because of the contrast between the black and the bright colors and the white, and I also really liked the weekly style that I was using for this month. It all just turned out really well. The next one we have was also from 2021, and this was our nautical theme. I just think that the elements of this really tied together nicely. I thought that the lettering and the color palette and the doodles all matched the theme really super well, and those rope style borders, like I said, they took forever, but I think they look really good. Also, even just the borders that looked like ripped paper matched the theme well too. So this one I certainly think of as a win. The October Mean Girls theme is one that I have actually already done again, so I can very much say that it was a favourite. Although I haven't done it again in my journal, we did it in Vogel's. I did it essentially the exact same way, like down to the placement of the doodles. I'm pretty sure they were like the exact same. This one's kind of funny because typically I don't gravitate towards themes that are a little bit more kind of messy with random placements of things, but this theme just really let me embrace that and I really loved it. What is probably one of my all-time favourite themes was the Koi Fish theme from November 2021. I had been meaning to do this theme for such a long time, and I think it turned out so super well. This is also another one that I have done again, though the second time I did it, it was for a giveaway journal, so it was just in black and white. But I did effectively utilise the same things. So the same style of doodles, the same style of corner decoration, that kind of stuff. The Mountains turned Buffalo Plaid theme from January 2022 is another favourite, and I would totally do this again, but I would hopefully find a different way to do the Buffalo Plaid, because drawing it out by hand was a mission that I do not want to repeat. But I loved this theme for the lettering, and for the contrast, and the decoration. It was just all good. Like, I really super loved this one. Also, even just those little kind of like leaf stick things that I've done besides some of the daily headers, they're like so simple and they look so cute. I love them. The letters theme that we had in March 2022 is another one that I would totally do again. The decoration on this one was actually pretty damn simple, and I loved using the different styles of borders on the monthly log. The little paper airplanes with their little kind of like flight path dashed line, so cute. I also just even loved the washi tape that I used here and how well it fit the theme. And the colour palette was pretty too, even though I don't necessarily tend towards pastels, because this one was combined with that kind of heavy black lettering from the foligraphy. I think it turned out excellent. So it's a theme that I would definitely do again. Moving ahead to the subsequent month, being April 2022, for this one we had an April showers theme, which at the time I felt kind of, I don't even know what, like weird doing it, because it just seemed like such a typical theme, but then it ended up being one that I super loved, and given the tier it's in, I would totally do this one again. I loved the little raindrops hanging off strings. I thought it looked really cute, and I loved the simplified colour palette of having the grey, the dark blue, and the gold. Although I do wish I had have used my journal a little bit more during this month, at least in terms of the memories and filling out my habit tracker, that kind of thing. I very much loved the aesthetic elements of this theme. Another theme that gave me a hand cramp was the Love is Love potions. This one felt like a redemption in a way, because as we saw, the June theme from the year prior ended up in the F tier. So just focusing on the one pride flag that I wanted to incorporate into the theme meant that the colour palette was way more cohesive, and then I could play more with the doodling elements. Although it took ages, I think it looks awesome. The gradient lettering in the monthly setup and the leaves and the potion bottles, just like all of it turned out super great. As you can see, this is another one that offers a fair bit of contrast when you have a lot of those sections that are more doodle heavy. But the nice part about incorporating the leaves and the little kind of teardrops is that I could use those on the weekly setups without having to do heaps and heaps of doodles, if that kind of makes sense. Into the B6, which hasn't actually featured on the tier list yet, so you can tell how much I've been enjoying my B6. I think the weird thing about the B6 is that it's smaller, but I feel more inclined to do more decoration. But the first monthly setup we had in this journal was September 2022 with the Fireflies theme, which I absolutely loved. I loved the little firefly doodles. I think they're so dang cute. And then like their little glowing butts look really good as well, which I feel like is a weird thing to say. I do kind of wish that I had have bought more of those decorative elements into the weeklies, but I needed all the space that I could get in terms of those. And I have found a style that works pretty well for me. I've also enjoyed doing the weekly reflections as part of those weeklies, which is another check in the win category for me. As you can probably expect, our next one is my October 2022 theme, being Lunar Witches, and honestly, I like this one so much that I am very much considering making it my theme for my next year setup, or my next start of journal setup, if that kind of makes sense. We've got the rope borders again, we have high contrast, we have the gold paint, all good things. I love this setup. So those are our 11 themes for the A tier, being the space theme, Rainbows 2.0, our nauticals theme, Mean Girls, Koi Fish, Mountains/Buffalo Plaid, Letters, April Showers, Love is Love Potions, Fireflies, and Lunar Witches. That is 70 themes ranked. Oh my lord, this video has been a long one. If you are still here though, let me know by putting a book emoji in the comments below, and I would also just love to hear what is your favorite theme that you've done before. If you wanted to check out the setups of these monthlies though, be sure to hit up the playlist that we have on the screen here. But otherwise team, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!